Perfecto. Muy buenas tardes, tengan todos ustedes bienvenidos al seminario Informe y Violación Comercial, por sus siglas en inglés conocidos por TVR. Le damos la bienvenida a todos los panelistas, un servidor. Mi nombre es el licenciado Edgardo Pedraza Quintanilla, primer vicepresidente de la Confederación de Agentes Zonales de la República. Y está con nosotros, nos acompaña Anthony Rini, que es supervisor internacional y especialista en comercio de protección de CBP en Estados Unidos. También nos acompaña Deborah Scott, que es International Trade Specialist de CBP, que aquí nos acompaña, que es la que nos va a hablar del tema. Y también nos acompaña Adam Sulewski, que es el representante de trade, de todo el comercio en Estados Unidos en la Embajada de México. Agradecer a todos el tiempo y disponibilidad de estar en este webinar. Le damos la bienvenida a todos y nos va a dar unas palabras primero Aaron Sulewski para después trasladarnos con Deborah Scott, que es la que nos va a dar toda la presentación con ustedes. Aaron, um, I already presented all you guys and dice que no se escucha. A ver, no sé, Steffi.
I can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear better. Someone there put that there's no, they're not listening.
Sí se escucha, yo
Sí se escucha.
okay.
Pusieron que ya, okay, everything's good, okay. Yeah, everybody's saying they're listening. Adam, please, welcome. You're going to say a few words and then we go back to Deborah after that. Go ahead, Adam.
Hola a todos. Again, my name is Adam Selesky, CBP, U.S. Customs and Border Protection's Trade Representative here at the U.S. Embassy, Mexico City. Very, very thankful everyone can take the time today to hear this presentation. It's very important to us about the Enforce and Protect Act and your ability to engage with us, to identify bad actors, and to ensure that legitimate actors can travel and trade without impedimation. So very thankful you can take the time. Also thankful to Karem for providing CBP this forum. Please, folks, if you have thoughts, questions on other programs that CBP administers, we welcome additional inquiries so we can create additional webinars, additional informational resources, and other compliance guidance to ensure that all of you have maximum clarity as you bring your materials into the United States. Thank you so much for your time, and I will give that over to my colleagues with our Enforce and Protect Act.
Gracias, Adam. Thank you, Adam. Y proseguimos ahora sí, con nuestra información principal, con nuestra Deborah Scott. Go ahead, Deborah. Your panel is all yours. Go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon. Are you able to see the screen with the presentation?
Yeah,
Yes.
everything is okay with the presentation.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure. Well, thank you for the introduction. And I'm happy to be here on behalf of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, speaking about the Enforce and Protect Act. So I hope you all find this information very useful. And please feel free to ask questions either through the chat or we can have a discussion at the end of the presentation. So again, thank you for being here. This webinar on the Enforce and Protect Act is designed to provide a high-level overview of the EPA program and also the trade violations portal for reporting violations of anti-dumping and countervailing duties under the Enforce and Protect Act. So today's webinar is going to cover a few different things. First, we will provide an overview of the trade violations reporting tool. We'll also talk about allegations under the Enforce and Protect Act, or EPA, which is how I will mainly refer to this program throughout the presentation. This webinar will also provide an overview of the moiety program and also provide some information about going through and using the trade violations reporting portal to file EPA allegations, and then discuss how the EPA process works and the EPA timeline. So what is the trade violations reporting portal? It's a tool that is designed to streamline the process of submitting allegations to CBP and also U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI. So as it stands right now, this platform has 4 distinct portals that, oh, excuse me, my apologies there, has 4 distinct portals that can be used to report different trade violations. There's one for reporting suspected or criminal or illegal activity to Homeland Security investigations. There is another portal to report anonymous trade violations to CBP. There is also a portal to submit moiety claims to CBP. And lastly, the one that we'll be focusing on today is the portal to report EPA violations to CBP. And you can see on the screen that there is the website or the URL that you can use to access the trade violations reporting portal. And it is the address at the very bottom. I can provide it again later, and I do think it will show up on some of the later slides. So the portal all the way to the left is the one that you would use to report the suspected criminal or illegal activity. And then the portal that you see on the right side of the screen would be to report different types of trade violations. This portal is also known as the e-allegation portal. And you can see some examples of some types of violations that would be reported through that portal. These are non-EPA violations. So they would cover things such as forced labor, anti-dumping and countervailing violations that are not qualifying under EPA. Also violations related to things like quotas or natural resources or some of the other items that you see on the screen. So the third portal, or the one that you see outlined in red here, is the one that is going to be used to report EPA allegations. We're going to cover this more in depth as we go through the presentation. But lastly, I'll mention the fourth portal, which is the one that you see on the right, which is to file a moiety claim. And to submit a moiety claim, you have to meet 2 requirements, and that is, one, to be defined as an interested party under the EPA regulations that are cited up on the screen there. And they also, your claim would also have to be associated with a previously submitted e-allegation or EPA allegation. So now let's talk a bit about the Enforce and Protect Act, or EPA. This program was established in 2016 after Congress passed the Trade Facilitation and Trade Enforcement Act of 2015. While the overall objective of the TIFTIA was to ensure a fair and competitive trade environment, the EPA legislation was specifically intended to improve trade law enforcement and duty collection. EPA allows CBP to investigate whether U.S. importers have evaded anti-dumping and or countervailing duties. So an EPA investigation would begin with an allegation. And what is an EPA allegation? It is defined as an allegation that a person has entered merchandise into the customs territory of the United States that is covered by an anti-dumping or countervailing duty order through evasion. The EPA allegation must be filed by an interested party as defined in CBP's regulations and must be accompanied by information that is reasonably available to the alleging party who files the allegation. So the EPA program focuses entirely on allegations of AD/CVD evasion that occurs through various means. One of the most common means, and several that we've dealt with before are listed here on the screen, but one of the most common means that we see in terms of US importers trying to evade payment of AD/CVD duties is transshipment through a third country. So as you're probably aware, there are a lot of AD/CVD orders on some different products from many countries, but there are a lot of AD/CVD orders involving products from China. And I don't want to just, pinpoint one particular country, but just to use that as an example, we see cases where products that are covered by the AD/CVD orders, for instance, like a product that is subject to an order from China that will be transshipped through a third country prior to being entered into the United States. And the US importer will declare that third country as the country of origin rather than the true country of origin, such as China. Another method of evasion that we see and we investigate through EPA allegations is misclassification. So this would be the US importer declaring the wrong harmonized tariff schedule codes. We also have seen the use of the wrong AD/CVD rate being declared by the US importer. And another type of evasion that we've seen is undervaluation of the merchandise. One other example I can think of that's not up on the screen is simply failing to declare AD/CVD duties, or that the merchandise is subject to an order. So we would probably just label that failure to declare. So within the investigative process for EPA, what happens once we decide to investigate a specific allegation is we will initiate an investigation that is led by an EPA analyst, somebody like myself working in my office, that will lead a team of other CBP experts to conduct an investigation into the alleged evasion. And the investigation that we conduct has to be done within certain statutory timeframes. And the whole purpose of the investigation is to determine whether enforcement action is warranted. Now, some of the tools that are available to us now through the EPA program are new authorities that allow us to apply interim measures, which essentially means that we can begin to collect cash deposits at day 90 of the investigation, rather than waiting until the investigation is concluded. It does include other measures, but that's the main example that I think would be of interest. The EPA also provides CBP with the authority to provide adverse inference against a US importer or a claimed foreign manufacturer that does not participate meaningfully in the investigation process. And EPA also allows us to do foreign verifications, which would typically involve a manufacturer or claimed manufacturer in a third country in cases where there is transshipment. But it could also involve foreign verification with another type of evasion, but most commonly it would be a verification of a foreign entity where there's a transshipment allegation. So EPA allegations have to provide evidence that reasonably suggest evasion based on information that's reasonably available to the alleger. And another thing that EPA allegations must do is show that the alleging party has standing under one of the 6 categories that is defined in the EPA regulations. And I'll provide a little bit more information about that in a moment. Lastly, EPA allegations have to indicate the confidentiality status of documents. The filing party has to indicate whether certain information needs to be treated as business confidential. So what type of information is required for an EPA allegation? Well, as I just mentioned a moment ago, the alleging parties have to be what is called an interested party that is defined by the EPA statute and the EPA regulations. And interested parties include parties such as US importers of merchandise that's covered by an AD/CVD order. An interested party can also be a trade or business association. It could be a US manufacturer or a US producer of a domestic-like product, meaning a product that is made in the US that is the same type of product as that covered by the AD/CVD order. Another category that an interested party can be is a foreign manufacturer or a foreign exporter of covered merchandise. There's some specific descriptions for some of these categories. And so what I would suggest is if you are looking to file an EPA allegation, that you would look at the EPA regulations and make sure that you would qualify as one of the 6 categories of parties that's specified in the EPA regulations as an interested party. If not, you may have business dealings or may have a partner or a stakeholder who might fit one of those 6 categories and would be able to file an EPA allegation. Now, some of the other information, once we establish that the alleger is an interested party that meets the definitions in the regulations, some of the other information that needs to be provided in an EPA allegation is the alleger's own contact information. One thing that's important to point out is that the EPA allegation cannot be submitted anonymously. And this also helps if the alleger wants to submit a claim for compensation or what is known as a moiety claim. An alleger also has to provide a description of the covered merchandise and a valid AD or CVD order number. And those are, usually pretty easy to provide, because if you know what the, what AD CVD case or order is being violated, then, you just need the number and a description of the merchandise as defined in the order. An EPA allegation must also describe the describe the evasion scheme. So this is where you would talk about whether it is transshipment or misclassification or another type of scheme. And lastly, the EPA allegation has to provide the name and address of the violating importer. Now, what are some best practices to consider when filing an EPA allegation? Really, one of the most important things is, what evidence should be provided. And here is a list of some examples. It is not meant to be the only types of evidence that can be provided. I will mention that there's a checklist on cbp.gov that relates to EPA allegations, and the checklist was developed to aid an interested party in filing an EPA allegation. But just to go over some of these types of evidence, they could include third-party data that is specific to the importer that the alleger thinks is evading the AD/CVD orders. It could be third-party market research, foreign customs data, a firsthand account, maybe detailed in an email or an affidavit of evasion that is believed to be taking place. Or any other current information about the imports that the duties are not being paid on. There are examples that I can provide for third-party data sources like Panjiva, Import Genius, Peers, Datamine. But I know there are many others, and CBP does not endorse one specific type over another. And I do want to mention that the information that is provided should be pretty recent. I mean, we are going to initiate an investigation and look back 1 year from the date that we start our investigation. So we do like to see, or we need to see, I should say, information that is specific to the previous 12 months. And so even though CBP can investigate entries going back further than 1 year, for the purposes of EPA, we need to have at least evidence of at least one entry that occurred in the prior year. Okay, so now that I've talked a bit about EPA allegations, I will talk briefly about CBP's moiety program. And this is a program that allows informants who filed either an e-allegation anonymously or an EPA allegation to file for compensation. The compensation is dependent on specific requirements being met. So the screen probably looks familiar to you. This is showing the trade violations reporting portal. And here we are just going to talk briefly again about the portal for moiety claims. So it looks like as of right now, it is positioned on the far right side of the screen. If you were to go to the TVR portal today, that's where it would be. I can't promise that, you know, the portal will be revised in the future, but as of right now, that portal is all the way to the right. And I'm going to move forward to explain a little bit more about what a moiety claim is, who can file, and information about the program. So, what is a moiety claim? Under the moiety statute and CBP's regulations, informants who provide original information about any fraud concerning customs revenue or any violation of customs or navigation laws or other laws administered or enforced by CBP can apply for compensation, a moiety award, provided that a net amount is recovered based on the information in the allegation. And this would be either the E allegation or the EVA allegation. Who can file a moiety claim? Any person who is not an employee or officer of the US government who provides original information concerning fraud that pertains to customs revenue or any violation of the laws enforced by CBP or ICE can file a moiety claim. And I will mention that the moiety claim program is not administered by my office. So if you do have a question about filing a moiety claim, you can send an email to this email address here that you see on the screen. What is original information for purposes of a moiety claim? It would be information provided to CBP or ICE that those agencies don't already have. And it would be information that is specific enough to allow CBP or ICE to investigate the claim and see if fraud or violation has really occurred. And on the right side of the screen, you can see some information about factors or elements that make a good E allegation. And again, these are anonymous allegations that do not pertain to AD/CVD specifically, or, you know, that would otherwise be covered by an EPA allegation. So if you are going to file an E allegation, you would want to provide as much information as you can about the violating party, the type, and the date and the location of the violation, and any other information that you have in your possession to describe the violation. And here's some information about the compensation that would be available under the moiety program. The maximum monetary award is limited to 25% of the net recovery, and under no circumstance is the amount paid for any one claim to exceed $250,000, but no less than $100 will be paid. After information is provided to CBP or ICE and the investigation confirms that it is original information that has led to a net recovery, those who have made a moiety claim may be entitled to monetary compensation. Compensation can only be paid after the investigation or administrative action or any legal action is taken. So this process could take many, many years to complete, because even though, like in the case of an EPA investigation, even though the EPA investigation will conclude after the period of 1 year, it can be appealed. And so it can often take several years, particularly if the case goes to the U.S. Court of International Trade. Okay, next I will talk a little bit about navigating the trade violations reporting portal to file an EPA allegation, which is the main subject of our discussion today. So
Okay.
on the screen, you can see the URL for the trade violations reporting portal. And that would be the web address that you could use to get to that screen that shows the 4 different individual portals, and one of which is the EPA allegations that we're talking about, also the moiety claims and e-allegations and so on and so forth. You could find links or buttons to enter each of those portals at this page here. So once you navigate to that website, you would then create a login profile if you don't already have one, and then fill out all the required fields and submit all the information that is required by the portal. Any documents that are submitted as part of an EPA allegation are going to be, excuse me, I knocked into my laptop and went forward. Any documents that are uploaded as part of the allegation are going to automatically be placed in the EPA case management system. And the EPA case management system houses the official record that is assembled during the course of the EPA investigation. So step 1, when you're at the homepage for the trade violations reporting portal, you're going to select the one box that has a place to report Enforce and Protect Act violations. And then once you click on the button to enter the portal, you will then see the page where you can either log into the portal or you can create an account. So one important thing to note is that in order to log in or create an account in the portal, the email that is used has to be associated with the EPA allegation or the investigation. Otherwise, there'll be some difficulty in communicating with the party filing the allegation. So this is the screen that you would see if you are a new user in the EPA portal. And as you can see here, you will be prompted to enter your first and last name, email address, and password. And then you will click sign up. After that, you will receive a confirmation that your account has been established, and then the portal can be established through the link that is provided. So this is what the EPA portal looks like. This is what you would see once you have an account and you log into the portal to submit EPA allegations. So as you can see on the left side, there is a place to submit your allegation, and that will open a blank allegation submission form. Once your allegation is submitted, you would be able to view the status of the EPA case that you are involved in. And then the box all the way over to the left is the place where the party can view any tasks that are assigned to them. These would normally be items that CBP asks, or these would be requests for information generally that CBP would request from the importers or different parties that are involved in the EPA case. So now that you're logged in, you would see this box right here, and you would hit start. So the first section of the initial allegation or filing the initial allegation is the personal details tab. Here you would select whether you are an interested party or a US government entity or other. If you select other, that would redirect the filing party to the e-allegation portal. Generally, if you're intending to file an EPA allegation, you would click on interested party. You would also click on whether or not you are a small business. You would answer yes or no to that question. For more information about small businesses, you can click on the link to the Small Business Administration. And then you would also have to indicate whether you are a lawyer or an agent representing the interested party. Just to recap, the interested parties are those 6 categories that we talked about before, like US importers, foreign manufacturers of the covered merchandise, and those are the 6 parties that are defined in the EPA regulations. I'm sorry. So at the bottom part of the screen, you can see this is where the alleger would input their information, including their address and city and state and their phone number. So once you enter all the information, you would hit select to confirm the address and to continue moving forward. And then when you are finished filling out all the personal details, then you would then enter the allegation details. And on this page, you are going to be prompted to first enter the AD case number or the CVD case number. Oftentimes, both apply. Sometimes there's only an AD case number, but you would enter those at the top portion of the screen. You would also provide a description of the product, and you have to select at least one type of evasion. And then you can use the arrows, the left and the right arrows, to select and deselect the evasion violation types. In the middle of the screen here, there's a link to the US International Trade Commission, and that will give you a list of all the current AD/CVD orders that are in place. So once everything has been entered here, then you would hit continue. And then we would arrive at the page where you would enter the violating importer details. And so here would be the name and the address, or where you would input the name of the address of the US importer that you believe is, not paying AD/CVD duties. And once you enter that information, you would hit continue. Finally, you would attach the documents that you are going to include as part of your allegation to support your claims being made. And again, you would have to identify any information that is being claimed as business confidential, and also file an accompanying public version. And there's a lot of information about the different versions, business confidential and public versions in the EPA regulations. So if there are questions about that, you can look at the regulations, or you can also reach out to us for some additional information or clarification about the confidentiality status of documents. So this is what the page would look like when you go to upload your files that you're including as your EPA allegation, part of your EPA allegation. And then you would read and check acknowledge to each of the statements that are on the screen. After you click submit, the website will provide a confirmation that your allegation was received. You will get a confirmation email that will directly connect you to the sign-in screen. And when you go back in to make sure that everything went through properly, you want to make sure that you use the same email address that you used to log into your account initially. So what are some problems or some typical filing deficiencies that we see with EPA allegations? Well, one big one is that the alleger does not name the importer of record that is actually violating the AD/CVD order. It could be that the alleger doesn't have standing as an interested party. It's possible that the products aren't covered by a current AD/CVD order. Either that product is not subject to an order, or the order has been sunsetted. It could be that the description of the evasion scheme is not detailed enough to give CBP information to begin investigating the claim. Or another problem that we might see is that the claim is valid, but the evasion that's being described happened too far in the past, meaning more than a year ago. Lastly, we'll talk a little bit about the EPA process itself. So when CBP receives an EPA allegation through the portal, and we review it, and we see that all of the basically all the boxes are checked. That the alleger has interested party status, that a valid AD/CVD order has been provided, that the scheme is detailed enough in its description. Once CBP determines that, it will officially receive the allegation and determine that the information provided in that allegation reasonably suggests that covered merchandise has been entered into the customs territory of the United States through evasion. So this will basically start the process. Once CBP officially receives the allegation, and it will do so by, currently our method is to email the alleger and tell them that we are officially receiving the allegation. That starts the timeline. So 15 business days after that official receipt is when CBP is required to initiate an investigation. And at that point, that is when we are going to say that, you know, the allegation reasonably suggests evasion. And once we receive the allegation and then initiate it 15 business days later, the EPA analyst is beholden to the timeline and cannot miss any deadlines. So when I say that we are bound by the statute, we are truly bound by the statute, and we have a limited amount of time to conduct our investigation. But as you can see here, and I'll walk through the different parts of the investigation as I move forward in the slides, EPA only has up to 360 days to conduct its investigation. So as I mentioned, day 0 is when we initiate the investigation. That's when we find that the information and allegation has demonstrated that there is reasonable suggestion of evasion, and the goal of this stage of the investigation is to determine quickly if there's reasonable suggestion of evasion. So that's why there's such a quick turnaround between our receipt and then 15 calendar days later, I keep saying calendar, I apologize. 15 business days later, we have to determine whether or not to initiate an investigation based on a reasonable suggestion of evasion. During this stage, EPA will begin actively investigating the allegation with the assistance of other CBP offices. Because we are bound by a specific timeline, we need as much possible to conduct research and gather critical investigation. At this stage of the investigation, CBP will be conducting its investigation without notifying the parties to the investigation, so that in order to minimize the risk that the parties being investigated or the party being investigated could, you know, change tactics and maybe adversely impact the investigation. So 90 days later, CBP is going to determine whether or not to implement interim measures. So again, those first 90 days, nobody is aware outside of CBP that the investigation is being conducted. But on day 90, CBP will announce to the importer who is implicated in the EPA allegation, and also the alleger, whether there is reasonable suspicion of evasion. And if reasonable suspicion of evasion is found, CBP is going to issue interim measures with the purpose of protecting revenue that is owed to the US government. 5 business days later, after day 90, CBP will then issue a written notice to the US importer and the alleger, and that written notice is going to go on the CBP website at cbp.gov. It will be only the public version. Any information that is business confidential will not be disclosed on the CBP website. The next deadline would be day 200. So between day 90, when the parties know about the EPA investigation, and day 200, parties to the investigation, which would be the US importer and the alleger, can voluntarily submit new factual information. This is generally information that the party would use to bolster their claim that there is AD/CVD evasion or not evasion. Any voluntary submissions that are made after the 200th calendar day will not be accepted on the record of the IPA allegation or IPA investigation, I'm sorry. Aside from voluntarily submitted information, CBP will also request information be provided from the importer and the various foreign manufacturers or claimed foreign manufacturers that are part of the evasion scheme. The next point in the timeline would be day 230. And this would be when the importer and the alleger can submit written arguments to CBP regarding the claims of evasion. These written arguments have to only reference information that is already on the official record of the IPA investigation. 15 days after the written arguments are submitted, the parties can submit responses or rebuttals to the written arguments. Finally, we get to the end of the investigation. As I mentioned, IPA investigations have a strict timeline. Generally, the timeline is 300 days from the date of initiation to the date of determination, but CBP does have the ability to extend the investigation by 60 days if the investigation is found to be extraordinarily complicated. But either way, whether the deadline is day 300 or day 360, CBP has to make a determination if, based on the record, there is substantial evidence of evasion. If CBP finds that yes, there is substantial evidence of evasion, the interim measures that were started at day 90 to protect the revenue will continue. Otherwise, they will end at some point in the future once all the opportunities to appeal the investigation are concluded. And whether the determination is made at day 300 or day 360, 5 business days after that date, CBP will again issue a written notice outlining its reasons for its decision, and the public version of that notice will be posted on cbp.gov. Now, I mentioned that there are some avenues for appeal after the investigation is done. This is not necessarily an appeal per se, but if a party wishes to do so, they can request an administrative review of the investigation from CBP's Office of Regulations and Rulings within the CBP Office of Trade. And what this is basically a request for the Office of Regulations and Rulings to conduct a de novo administrative review of all the information that's on the record already, but basically looking at it with fresh eyes, without consultation with the IPA analysts and the IPA team that originally conducted the investigation. The administrative review, if one is requested, has to be made, or the request has to be made within 30 business days after the IPA investigation makes its or issues its notice of determination as to evasion. So that would be the day 300 or day 360 decision. Once the period for regulations and rulings, the 60 business days concludes and they issue their administrative review, the parties to the investigation, if they choose, can request a judicial review with the U.S. Court of International Trade of CBP's decision. So at this point, the review would go, or the case would go to the USCIT, and we would have to wait until the court finishes its ruling, or its, finishes and provides a final ruling of the case. And that would be when, we determine whether or not, the interim measures can be concluded if they were in place at that point. So it's a lot of information. But to help you out, we have some QR codes here on the screen where you can get more information just about the EPA program in general. You can also get a link to the trade violations reporting portal. And there's also a QR code for links to pre-recorded or webinars that have taken place before about the EPA program and just trade outreach in general. So are there any questions? If so, I would be happy to try to answer them. I'll leave this screen up for a moment in case anyone wants to capture the QR codes or make a note of the web addresses on the screens.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Deborah. Thank you for your presentation. If anyone has any question, please, can you please raise your hand so we can give you the micro and you can ask Deborah by yourself the question, or if you want to type it right here on the chat, and we can give it to her so she can answer any of the questions that you will have. Okay, Deborah, so I think nobody has any questions. I didn't receive nothing in the chat, and there's no any hand that is raised. But I just wanted you to I wanted to thank you for the presentation that you just gave to us. I think that we to the people that is online now, we are gonna send you the presentations, hoping that CBP could share it with us so we can send you the presentation so you can have all the information that Deborah just presented to us. And in a little bit of time, Deborah is going to be here, the custom broker Margali Cavazos. She's going to introduce to the people that is connected right now a nurse seminary that we will have on September 27.
Okay.
So if only we can give her like a little bit of time so she can get connected.
Oh, sure, sure.
And present the webinar. And to the people that is here, I just wanted you to hold a little bit of time so she can present you the next seminar that we will have on September 27.
And I also placed on the screen, there's a couple of email addresses on the left side of the screen. If anyone thinks of any questions after the webinar, they can email us at either of those email addresses, and we'd be happy to try to answer everyone's questions as best as we can.
Okay, so we're gonna share now the next flyer from the next seminar that we will have. Magali, here's the promotion now that we have for the next seminary. If you wanna introduce the topic. Magali, ya estamos
Hola.
aquí conectados, sí, listo.
Claro que sí.
Bienvenida.
No, no me permite prender la cámara, pero bueno, aquí estamos. Y bueno, para hacerles la cordial invitación a nombre del Comité Ejecutivo de la próxima
Hola,
reunión que vamos a tener, el webinar que tenemos, aquí estamos, hola, para que todos estemos, y bueno, va a ser medidas de protección ambiental en materia de pesca ilegal, tráfico de madera y vida silvestre. Si recordamos en la anterior intervención que tuvo CBP con nosotros del fentanilo, nos platicaron sobre las situaciones que tuvieron con relación a la parte de también algunas cuestiones de tráfico. Y bueno, esta reunión que vamos a tener y este webinar va a ser muy importante. Lo vamos a tener el viernes 27 a las 11. Va a durar de 11 a las 2 y entonces ahí nos estamos viendo si Dios quiere. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Deborah, I don't know if you're still here. She's Magali Cavazos. She's our custom broker that is in charge of all the items or the topics, sorry, that are regarding the operation here at Karim with the custom brokers of all Mexico. So she just introduced another seminar that we will have with CBP on September the 27th, and I don't know, no sé, Magali, si quieres agradecer la participación de los demás y hacer el cierre del seminario.
Muchísimas gracias a todos los que nos acompañaron. Esta información es importante de ver los procedimientos. Siempre el derecho comparado es importante y sobre todo analizar que esto abone a su apoyo. Y muchas gracias a CBT por todo el apoyo. Y bueno, nos estamos viendo. Muchas gracias.
Gracias a todos. Hasta luego.